A lot of times, people are too quick to judge young players and throw the label of a bust onto their name just after a couple poor seasons after being drafted, but sometimes players just take a little bit longer to develop, and that is going to be the subject of today's video. I'm going to be talking about 5 NHL players who can prove to us next season that they are not an NHL draft bust. Starting the list off with Josh Ho-Sang of the New York Islanders. Coming into the 2014 NHL draft, there was a lot of hype around Josh Ho-Sang, and he was seen as one of the most offensively gifted players in the draft, but up until this point in time, he really hasn't been able to get to a full-time roster spot with the New York Islanders, and I think a lot of this hasn't just been because he's not ready to be in the NHL, it's because he has a little bit of an ego issue and he's had troubles getting along with the New York Islanders head coaches up until this point in time. Ho-Sang was drafted with the New York Islanders' 28th overall pick in the 2014 NHL draft. He's currently 22 years old, and during the 2016-17 season, he played in 21 games and had 4 goals and 6 assists for 10 points, and during the 2017-18 season, he played in 22 games and had 2 goals and 10 assists for 12 total points. Now, in my opinion, besides Toronto Maple Leafs fans, I think Josh Ho-Sang was probably the happiest person in the world with what John Tavares decided to do this offseason. I think Josh Ho-Sang is a guy who wants to be the top dog on a team, and now with the New York Islanders probably going to be looking to some other players for goal scoring, Josh Ho-Sang could really slot into that role and play very well in my opinion for the New York Islanders. They also do have a new head coach, Barry Trotz, who just won the Stanley Cup, and I definitely think if Barry Trotz is able to get a good connection with Josh Ho-Sang, and they play him in a top 6 role, maybe with a guy like Matthew Barzal where he's able to thrive, also give Josh Ho-Sang some power play minutes where he's able to use his very good shot and his good offensive awareness, I think we could see Josh Ho-Sang have a breakout season next year and prove to everybody that he's not a bust and he is the real deal. Next up is Sam Bennett of the Calgary Flames, and Sam Bennett, when drafted, was seen as a guy to come in and really be a huge piece of the Calgary Flames franchise going forward. Throughout Sam Bennett's short career so far, we really haven't been able to see anything from him that is telling us he is going to be the player that he was in junior and the player that the Calgary Flames drafted him to be, and he really has been taking steps backwards in his progression ever since his rookie season. The Calgary Flames drafted Sam Bennett with the 4th overall pick in the 2014 NHL entry draft, making Sam Bennett the highest draft pick in Calgary Flames franchise history. Bennett would play in just one game in the 2014-15 season where he had 1 assist, and during his rookie year in 2015-16 he posted 36 points in 77 games, but since then it has been downhill with back-to-back 26-point seasons in seasons where he did play more games than he did in his rookie year, and it's kind of looking like Sam Bennett could be a bust with that 4th overall draft pick. The Calgary Flames made a lot of moves this offseason really to bolster up their offensive depth, and I think this kinda is bad news for Sam Bennett as his time in Calgary could potentially be coming to an end. With him being a restricted free agent come next summer, it's going to be interesting to see if he does have another bad season. Do the Calgary Flames want to take yet another chance on this guy and see if he can become anything close to the player they drafted him to be? Next year is going to be arguably the biggest year of Sam Bennett's career, and I think he does have the skill to bounce back and be a player who can put up at least 45 to 50 points, in which I think that is what it's going to take for the Calgary Flames to give this guy another chance, and I'm certainly hoping for the Calgary Flames' sake and especially for Sam Bennett, he can bounce back and show us next year that he's not a bust. Next up on the list is Jake Virtanen of the Vancouver Canucks. Now, Jake Virtanen is an interesting one for me because unlike a lot of other players on this list, he's a very physical guy and can be a solid scoring bottom 6 forward in my opinion, but that really isn't what they drafted him to be. They drafted Jake Virtanen to come in and be a franchise centerpiece for them moving forward, and if he doesn't ever live up to that potential, I think he still will be a solid bottom 6 guy for Vancouver, and I can't really say that about a lot of the other players on this list because they are more offensively minded players and not really guys you want to have in your bottom 6, but Jake Virtanen is a guy who can thrive in a bottom 6 situation because he brings that grit and sandpaper to your lineup. The Canucks drafted Virtanen with the 6th overall pick in the 2014 NHL draft, and in the 2015-16 season he went on to play in 55 games and had 7 goals and 6 assists for 13 points, and then in the next 2 years he would only post a total of 21 points, playing in a total of 85 games. But in my opinion, this previous season was a year that Jake Virtanen can build off of and really be a confidence booster moving forward. I think the goal for Jake Virtanen next year is to score around 15 to 20 goals. Obviously, we know he's capable of putting up 20 points now because that is what he did, but I think it would be a huge bummer for the Vancouver Canucks if Jake Virtanen was to take a step back in his progression next season, and a guy like Elias Pettersson coming in I think is really going to benefit Jake if he can play on a line with him, because Pettersson is one of the most crafty prospects in hockey. You could argue he's the best prospect in hockey, and he is probably going to put up a lot of points, and if Jake Virtanen can get on a line with Pettersson and develop some solid chemistry, I think that would do wonders for his career, and I think he still does have the potential to be a guy that can put up 50 to 60 points and still be a physical presence. Next up is Dylan Strome of the Arizona Coyotes, and Strome is a player that the hockey community is kind of torn apart on, some people calling him a bust already, and some people just saying he's taking a little bit more time to transition his game to an NHL level, and for me, I'm kind of caught up in the middle, as I don't really see him being the player that he was drafted to be, and that is one of the best centers in the NHL, but I definitely think he can still be a very solid top 6 forward for the Arizona Coyotes when it's all said and done, and he definitely showed flashes of what he can do towards the end of last season. Dylan Strome was the 3rd overall pick of the 2015 NHL draft, obviously coming from the Erie Otters, where he put up a ridiculous amount of points playing with Connor McDavid, and then coming into the NHL he played 7 games in the 2016-17 season where he had 1 assist, and this past season he played in 21 games and had 4 goals and 5 assists for 9 points, all these games coming towards the end of the season when we really knew that the Arizona Coyotes weren't going to be anywhere near the playoffs, and I really do think this helped Dylan Strome a lot and could be a huge confidence booster for him heading into next season. Currently, as it stands, Derek Stepan is the number 1 center for the Arizona Coyotes, and in my opinion, Derek Stepan is best suited as probably a number 2 or 3 guy, and if Dylan Strome is able to come in next season and show that he can be a number 1 center in the NHL, I think the Arizona Coyotes could be a very, very sneaky team next season. With the play and performance that Dylan Strome showed at the end of last season, I definitely think with a solid training camp, he's more than likely going to be on the opening night roster for the Arizona Coyotes. Where at in the lineup though is the question. Are they going to play him at center? Is he going to be moved to the wing? It's all going to be interesting to see what happens, but all in all, he's a very talented guy, and I think a lot of people are saying he's a draft bust too soon just because there was so much hype surrounding him coming into the league. But if Dylan Strome can build off the play he had towards the end of last season, I definitely think that bust label is going to go away and he's going to solidify himself as a huge part of the Arizona Coyotes heading into the future. And the last player we're going to talk about in today's video is Pavel Zacha of the New Jersey Devils. Now, when he was drafted, he was seen to come in and be the number 1 center for this team. Obviously, I think now Nico Hischier has that position locked down, but if Pavel Zacha is able to move up from that 3rd line and be a very solid 2nd line center, I definitely think that would be huge for the New Jersey Devils, because they're a team who in my opinion are kind of a question mark and on the bubble if they are going to make the playoffs next season. I think a lot of other teams in the Metropolitan Division are getting better, and the New Jersey Devils could be a victim of that. They do have a lot of young talent, but it is just a matter of if they're going to keep developing, and after 2 mediocre seasons so far, I think the New Jersey Devils are getting a little bit restless and are really hoping to see a huge breakout year for Pavel Zacha next season. The New Jersey Devils drafted Pavel Zacha with the 6th overall pick in the 2015 NHL entry draft, one of the deepest NHL drafts we have seen in a long time. He played 1 game in the 2015-16 season where he had 2 assists for 2 points and he looked very solid. The following year he played in 70 games and had 24 points, and then this past season he played in 69 games and had 8 goals and 17 assists for 25 total points. Pavel Zacha, when healthy, I think he still is a very solid player for the New Jersey Devils. Not quite showing yet that he is the player that they drafted him to be, but he is only 21 years old and still has a lot of time to do that. With Travis Zajac getting older and not really being a suitable top 6 center anymore, I definitely think the window for opportunity is going to be wide open for Pavel Zacha to have a breakout season next year. Looking back at all the players drafted after Pavel Zacha in the 2015 NHL entry draft, you have names like Ivan Provorov, Zach Werenski, Noah Hanifin, Brock Besser, Travis Konechny, Thomas Chabot, all looking like they're going to be more suitable NHL players in the future than Pavel Zacha. But for the New Jersey Devils, that really is unfortunate, but hopefully for their sake next year he can have a really good season, because I think if he does have another mediocre year and gets problems with injuries once again, I certainly think the bust label could be thrown onto this guy for good. So that is going to wrap up this video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. I apologize, I am very sick. That's probably why my voice sounds a little bit different, and that is also why you guys are only going to be getting one video tomorrow. I decided to put off an expectations video as we have been pumping them out lately, and there's still plenty of time before the regular season starts, but I still wanted to get one video out, and I thought this was a really fun one to make. So make sure you guys let me know down in the comment section, do you think these players can still bounce back and be huge parts of their team moving forward? With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.